Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining the session. My name is Guillaume Estegassy. I'm the global lead for smart buildings and smart places at Microsoft. So today we'll talk about, how do we transform this smart building industry using IoT, AI, and cloud. And we'll talk about new technologies such as digital twin, for instance. So vision about, this industry. I think from our point of view, you can really only call a space intelligent when you understand three main things that are happening in that space. And those are things, that relate to systems, places, and people. When you start understanding how these are positioned in a space and how they interact with each other, then you start understanding really what kind of data you can gather from it and what kind of intelligence you can have. So, in the past, we've been very good at understanding the things, and we started a little bit about understanding the space, but now we really have to get this people component into the space and how do they interact with the things. So you'll see this theme repeated throughout the presentation because we think that's very, very important in order to enable a lot of very, very interesting and data-driven scenarios. So when we talk about smart places, smart spaces, I mean, it encompasses a lot of industries, a lot of building types, a lot of processes, right? So it's all the way from, your energy grid to, things like retail, manufacturing, of commercial real estate is a big focus for us. So all these things are interconnected and can actually talk to each other. And that's what we're gonna discover when we get in the concept of the system, what we call a system of reality, and that's about really getting all the data and making a virtual environment of all this, all the way to creating what we call a digital twin. So digital twin has been something that's been around since probably the 1990s as a concept of modeling a physical thing into a digital thing, like a airplane engine, like a car. But today we have the technology because of cloud and hypercompute, because of IoT and the power of IoT on the edge, and because of really, really, really advanced and an increasing amount of AI, we can build a complete system of a physical space into a digital counterpart of it. So if we think about the industries that really will benefit from this, there's a lot of there's lots of places where really it matters, right? Commercial real estate be the first one. I mean, number of buildings out there, and I mean we'll talk about the impact on sustainability and what it means, right? Buildings are, the world most culprit for carbon emission, with 40% of the world's carbon emission comes from buildings, right? And so everybody has a stake into making buildings smarter and greener. And so all the way from government to schools and universities, to stadiums, to manufacturing plants, hospital, retail space, everybody has a stake in really understanding how do we build smarter places. And in terms of scenario, we're going to look at really three main buckets with a lot of scenarios in them. But energy management and building operation, obviously very important. You need to start with this. How do you optimize and manage your space? And what kind of experience you're going to give to people, right? People coming to that space, what are they going to experience? And I think that's also a component that is more and more important. In this COVID world, people want a great office experience, but also a safe office experience. So we will talk about that as well. If we expand a little bit around smart city, right, then you have things like your infrastructure with water and gas and waste, street lights, smart parking, safety, right? And so those things are also applicable if you're talking about a big private development, if you're going to build a big business park or something like this. it will also have infrastructure, it will have all these concepts. So the idea here when we talk about these systems of reality is that you can expand it pretty much to any scale you want, from one building to an entire city. In terms of Microsoft's presence in that space, we are recognized as one of the top players for IoT in the context of smart cities and smart places. So this new IDC study that just came out just outlined this. We really want to take a vertical approach to helping customers achieve this concept of smart city and smart places. We also did a couple studies called IoT signals, and there's been two. This was the first one. There's another one out, but the message here is it's still very complex, right? And so companies are looking at I don't know implementation of IoT in that space as still a big technical challenge. And I think as a company, this is where we can come in and really help sort of demystify the complexity, as well as provide solutions that are built for this commercial real estate, for this smart building industry. So I think this is to us this is very important that, and we look at the technology not as a blocker but really as an enabler. And that just brings me to really again digital twins. We have just released Azure Digital Twins, which is a brand new service on the Azure platform that is meant for customers to have full digital twins of their real estate assets, right? And so again, remember the things and places and people. So if we go a little bit more detail around this, it's really about getting those things and understanding those things and making sure there is a great interaction between all these things, right? It's not just understanding one thing in the silo, like having a good handle on your system and operation is good, but if you don't use this to actually drive people experience ultimately, you're really not having such an intelligent system, right? So in order for me to go into a meeting room and for this meeting room to recognize me as Guillaume and set the light preference the way I want, to set the temperature the way I want, to start my meeting because it knows my calendar and all of that, I need the systems to be talking to the place and then the experience I have on my device. All of these things need to communicate together, right? This is really very important to the concept of digital twin here as we outline it. And so, not to dive too deeply on what Azure Digital Twin is, there's a lot of publications out there now, but think about it as a way to standardize the way equipment and the relationship between people, places, and things is actually modeled. And so having a common language, what we call the DDTL, the Digital Twin Definition Language, it's very, very important to sort of getting rid of the silos, build everything on one platform and starting to derive the data from this platform. And then from there, you can build extraordinary 3D rendering. You can have all your real-time visualization of IT and OT data. There's lots of things you can do, but it does start with having that common language for all these things. And then, if you look at the relationship, on the right side, this is actually an actual graph that, if you were to expand it, because of course we would have to do that, it's outlining all the relationship and how do you create new relationship between those things, between these people, between the assets, right? So it's really getting from a hierarchical model, which gets very, very limiting, to sort of a dynamic graph where you build these relationships, right? And so one of my colleagues created that slide, which I really like, about the Russian dolls of digital twins. And what it says really is that you use the same principle whether you are modeling a part all the way to modeling a city and beyond. When you build a digital twin, you build it so it scales, and that's what we are offering with this new Azure Digital Twins, is that scalability is our responsibility. that is what Microsoft can provide for you. Whether you want to expand to thousands of property assets, or whether you just want to do one building, but you should feel comfortable that this is built to scale. And that is very important. And it's always good to start small. Like it's always good to start with, say, one building and then expand it to other buildings. But the scalability is definitely there, and that's something that we think is very, very important. And so you're here today listening to this session because of multiple things, and I'm sure you will recognize on that slide, and maybe have other things also on your agenda. But sustainability is now core and center of a lot of companies. We need to have greener buildings. We need to reduce energy. We need to optimize consumption. We need to do all these things longer. And if it's a win, everybody now has sustainability targets. We need to be able to do this. And of course, cost reduction is also now very important. If you look at post-COVID world, where the need for the physical space is gonna probably change with more people working from home, how much space exactly do you need, right? And how do you calculate this? How do you define this? But for the space you're gonna have, you want the space to be as welcoming, as healthy, and as conducive to productivity as possible. I mean, we've done a lot of effort, and I'll talk about this in our own Microsoft locations to really, have a space as engaging as possible. Whether you are actually bringing people for interviews, like showing them what the company is about, that is translated through the space and how welcoming the space is to retain talent, right? And that's like if their environment is something they really love and love to engage with, this actually matters for people, as opposed to being in a sort of very drab environment where it's not very conducive to productivity and frankly to happiness. And so the technologies are there. Cloud and IoT are enabling us today to do all these things, right? And then there's a brand. You want to build a brand. You want to build an experience. And if you own buildings, if you build buildings, you want people going to these buildings to recognize you as a brand. I recognize this building. This experience is unique to this building. So if we look at this from a different lens a little bit, we look at the assets, and the assets are typically at the base of the building. Is where all the systems are, where the HVAC resides, and city management world is happening there, right? And you need to get a really good handle on this. You need to have the most optimized systems possible. And then in the middle, you have all these things that's moving, right? You have, how the space is being used. You have transportation. You have safety, and then at the top you have the people experience, right? What is going to be their experience? How fluid is it to go to that building? If it's for a visitor, if it's for an employee, and all these experiences are going to depend on level 1 and level 2 below, right? How well that's been implemented. So very important to do these things. Starting from the base and going to the top. And if we look at a few of these buckets, literally there are hundreds of scenarios, right? But if you sort of group them, it spans all the way from construction to productivity. And in all of these buckets, you can isolate some of them and have a different experience built, right? And this is what we do when we work with our customers to say, what are the things that matter to you? Is it all of it? Is it some of it? What do you want the experience to be for this? And some of it will be consolidated, some of it will be separate. So it's a big exercise to look at, all these scenarios. And the challenges really are well known in the industry, and it's about having a lot of different systems in a building, and those are some of the names of the system you'll find in the building. This is an extensive. They're all actually Microsoft partners here, and they all have their own way of communicating to back to your systems, right? To your building management system. And so the need at the center for having the definition language that things that kind of unify everything is really great, because then when you have this, then you can start looking at the right side and looking at all the services you can use to provide great experiences, right? But you need to federate everything that's on the left, and you'll have a lot of different vertical solutions there, and you need to build that into one common platform. And I think that is, again, that is a very strong message, but that's the one message I really want you to retain today, probably, is that the need to build this unified platform it should be at the core of your strategy, because then you can plug in any vertical solution moving forward. So why is Microsoft even in this, right? Well, it did start back in 2011 when we looked at the real estate portfolio we had, but more importantly, we look at the Redmond campus, right? This is our headquarters over there that you see pictured below, and then 125 buildings over there, and there are probably more these days. But overall, as a company, we are a landlord, we lease building, we own about half of the 800 locations that we have. So we do have a unique point of view. I know, being a landlord, being a tenant. And when we looked at the Redmond campus, the Puget Sound campus, we thought, well, there might be a way here to save on energy, right? And so in 2011, we started what was called the 88 Acres Project, and which was looking at all the pieces of equipment we had, and turning that into something that would be smart, in which we could derive insights and start saving on energy. And so, if you look at the overall picture of what that was, it was like a disparate amount of equipment, some of it 20, 30 years old, some of it more recent, overall about 34,000 pieces of equipment. And instead of upgrading the equipment, we actually use software to get data from this equipment, even if their language was kind of old and probably obsolete, but still there was a way to get the data from this equipment. And using things like machine learning and fault detection engine, we were able to look at all the transactions that are created in a day, which is about 50 million per day, and identify where the problems were, what the real problem, and drive smart facilities management with it. And it was it's actually an incredible success. Today, with 2011, we are saving about 20 to 25% of our energy over there on the Redmond campus, which is several $1 million a year. And not only that, but we are driving very, very efficient facilities management, which if you're talking about smart buildings, you have to be talking about smart facilities management, right? Running facilities management as a traditional, scheduling thing just doesn't make sense anymore, right? You need to do preventive maintenance. You need to be able to fix problems before they happen. You need to reduce the downtime to close to zero. And so, on the Redmond campus, I mean, if you think about it, we have 125 buildings, and we have about 30 people on the facility management side. That's it. And a lot of the issues are actually corrected remotely, through the command and control center. So, and this is a model we've applied to customers, right? It says it works really well. So it's like, before you think about really complicated scenarios, and let's make sure buildings are smart and are saving energy. Again, that is something that is really mature now. It is not difficult to do. Well, we've done it multiple times. Our partners are doing it all the time. Companies like Schneider Electric, Johnson Controls, Honeywell, they are all running on the Microsoft platform, and they're doing that every day. It needs to start with that, and it will help you meet your sustainability target as well. But if we look, let's look past energy, right? Let's look at occupancy, for instance. And here was an example we work with Steelcase, which is, a smart connected furniture company that now does a lot more than furniture and does IoT solutions as well. But understanding how the space was used, again, we use the Redmond campus back, and we use that now in all our spaces, in all the Microsoft offices. Understanding how the space is being used. Like, do we have enough space? Do we have too much space? If we have too much space, from a CFO perspective, that does not look good, right? Because this is directly affecting your P&L. So you don't want to be leasing more space or owning more space than you actually need as a company. Do we have enough of one type of meeting room? Too little? Where do people congregate? Are they using the space we created for collaboration? Is it being used or not? So you can imagine all of these things, right? When you start being smart about this, it's actually going to drive a lot of your planning moving forward. Your space planning, obviously, like, should you create more of one type of space and less than another type of space when you do a remodel? Do you have issues? Why this part of the building used? And then you need to investigate. So all of this data now can be pulled, right? And that's a big game changer. We talked about that before, about the trends, and if you look at the work streams below the trends, right? So it's all the things about meetings and wayfinding and arrival and departure, smart parking, food and beverage, and the list goes on, right? So depending on what you're building, of course, you're going to have even additional streams that matter to you. But those are the big main streams that we see customers focusing on for their smart building experience. And this I also want to talk about. So while the ROI on energy was obvious, right? We got ROI on the campus in less than 2 years. Do you have ROI when you optimize the space, right? And you do have ROI when you optimize the space, and that's something that, while it's a little bit more complicated, some calculate, right? But what we're doing now, especially on the Microsoft locations, is once we have a reorganization or a new building comes up and we need to move people physically, we move them based on the relationship they have with their coworkers. So, for instance, if my team were to relocate, and most of my team is actually based in the US, then they will be reassigned close to the teams they work the most with. For instance, that would be our product group team, because we work a lot with them on digital twins and things like that. So by doing that, then you group people in a way that makes sense, because you know that they're working with them the most. And so you don't have the need to travel that much. In a campus that has 100+ buildings, you take a shuttle to go from one building to the other. And that's a loss in productivity, spent in a shuttle where it would have been better spent probably in a meeting or working, right? So you start seeing all these metrics, and they start to add up, right? So there's definitely a ROI there. And so we use that a lot now for ourselves, obviously. And as a company, we've always been really good at understanding the relationship people have with their coworkers, how they work together on the left side. And now we're bringing the right side of this chart, which is the relationship between the people and the space, right? Whether it's through devices, whether it's through geolocation. But we're starting to merge the two so that, in the end, you have this relationship between people and people, of course, but people and space and people and buildings and systems, which is what we were talking about at the beginning, if you remember. And there is so many, advantages of doing that. I mean, I'm not going to read through all of this. Of course, you'll have the presentation offline and then you can read at your leisure. But really, whether you're talking about individuals or whether you're talking about groups, entire organization, the productivity gain that you have from understanding all this relationship between places, people, and things are very, very tangible things. This is a difference between a smooth day at work and a not so smooth day at work. And like a smooth day at work, I come to work. If I drive, I can reserve my parking spot. I know where to park. I don't have to drive for 20 minutes to find a spot. Then I can find a meeting room easily. I can find my coworkers easily if I need to talk to them. All these little things that make your day really, really smooth in the end. And of course, we can't really talk about now smart places without thinking about COVID and the impact it has on existing and future places. And so, once we think about the implication, there are a number of scenarios that have come to mind in the past months. Some of them now full-fledged solution around what makes a building healthy, what makes a building safe. And so you see on the screen here a number of these solutions. It's not extensive. There can be more depending on where you are in the world. Some are applicable and some are not applicable. But suffice to say that this now is part of the discussion when you want to build a new place. This has to be part of the discussion. And so some of our partners working with us have done remarkable things like this care pod that you see, which is a very easy to construct testing center. It's also been extended to long-term visiting for nursing homes and also for the education sector. In terms of sort of really complete solution for buildings and offices, we've worked with RXR, Infosys, and then McKinsey and Northwell Health to design something called RxWell, which is a comprehensive solution for going back to the office and from the way that facilities management are going to be run, like from a cleaning perspective to the way people are interacting with each other, a number of people in the building. So if you're interested in this, that's definitely this solution has been deployed and is now available. And we have a lot of other solutions from different partners as well. But it's become part of the normal now when we think about intelligent places. So Microsoft will continue to invest in in this industry, and not only I'll talk a little bit about the new campus in Redmond, but all over the world, at different phases. We started with Singapore back this October, and so we have a lot of scenarios implemented in a new Singapore office. And when it'll be allowed to actually visit the offices, we'll be happy to have you wherever you are in the world, visit your closest Microsoft office to explain what we've done there. We are redoing part of the campus in Redmond. This is a big project, 17 new buildings, replacing the ones we've torn down. And we want it to be a fantastic showcase, not only of our technology, but our partner technologies. And that's very important because whatever we build here is something we want you to be able to use should you want to. Not building a proprietary Microsoft solution. We're using our partner capabilities to build a set of great experiences and something we can bring to you and say, if you want to deploy this, our partners are ready to help you do that. So I think it's very important. That is something we are more than happy to share in our experience and our journey. And so you can see how the technologies we have in our company are applied to the different streams that are going to be available on the new campus. And I will finish this presentation by saying that it really is about our partner ecosystem here, which is growing at a very fast rate. Some of these names you will recognize from the industry. And then, it's not even an extensive list, and we have thousands of partners in that space, but these are the most recognizable probably to you. They are the people that will help you along with us to build your smart building experience. And so I hope this presentation was useful to you. I really look forward to having conversations as a follow-up. Thank you very much for your attention and attending the session. I will talk to you soon. Thank you.